This is Gators Breakdown, part of the SEC Breakdown Network, and we didn't get a game this past weekend from what we know from Florida LSU, but once again, I am your host, David Waters, and joining me again, Joey V. We survived what was Hurricane Matthew, came rolling through here late last week. So, Joey, hope all is well, and hope, Hurricane Matthew didn't mess you guys up down there too much in Melbourne.
No, a lot of trees down. We got very lucky. Came within 10 miles of the coast where I live. I live 5.3 miles from the beach, exactly, my house. So I was 15 miles away from the center of the hurricane. And if it had come 15 miles closer, we would have got wiped out. We would have lost a lot more. Got very lucky, very fortunate, because it actually looked like I was watching the radar the entire time it was coming by us. And it kept trying to creep in, and it just kept bouncing out. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. You could see the track. It was going like this, and then it would bounce out. It would try to come back in, and it would bounce out. It was like there was a barrier along the coast. I was like, whoa, so it was loud. The winds were bad the entire night. I think I got an hour sleep because I wanted my family to sleep. I was trying to just stay up and make sure everything was okay. Most thing I was worried about most was my roof blowing off, but we were all good. I have a newer house, so I have the hurricane straps up in my attic, so it helped. I heard him pulling too. I mean, when some of the big wind gusts would come in, I heard him creaking and grabbing onto the rafter. So, but glad to see that you're okay. I know to all our viewers out there in Daytona Beach and in Port Orange and Ormond Beach and St. Augustine, that area, our deepest condolences to you and your families. I know you guys got hit really hard, and to our viewers up in South Carolina and North Carolina, I know you guys got hit really hard as well. Had some deaths and some floods, and my thoughts and prayers go out to all of you out there.
Yeah, that's right. I'm here in Jacksonville, and we were, I'm about 20 miles off the coast, but TV station I work for, we. Well, first of all, foremost for me, nothing much happened for me either. Lost a little bit of power, but that was really about it. But TV station I work for, we went down there Saturday to St. Augustine, and I tell you what, man, I was heartbroken for a lot of people. It was just devastation, and a lot of people were waiting in line on the bridge to get over the Bridge of Lions to go back to their island homes in St. Augustine. And, it was, a lot of people actually had come from Gainesville. They were spending the night in Gainesville, from Friday night. So they were coming back into St. Augustine Saturday. So, I talked to a lot of people who had left Gainesville. That was their refuge. So, there was a lot of that going on. Just to see those people's homes. And like I was telling you, I went to a mobile home park that was a senior home living, and saw people who had lost everything, and it was very sad to see. I felt a bit guilty having to stick a camera in their face or whatever, but I was out there doing my job, and they were very appreciative. We took ice out to all of them. We gave away free ice for a lot of people who didn't have power, so they could get by just a little while longer. But yeah, rough situation, and definitely what will lead us to the big scenario with Florida and LSU. All that deal. But before we dive into that, you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC, just David Waters, and Joey V at Joey_SportsTalk. You'll see our thoughts, and you've seen plenty of them the last few days dealing with this, Florida LSU postponement, both sides, even rival fans from, Tennessee, Georgia, FSU having to get their jabs in at Florida. First and foremost, I want to say the biggest thing that I probably lost respect for from a lot of our rival fans and a lot of LSU fans in particular, get the narrative out of your head that Florida was scared to play this game. It's asinine. It's immature. Had nothing to do with it. Was there mistakes made? Yes. But both ADs have sunk their heels in. They're protecting their schools, and that's first and foremost what they're supposed to do. So for right now, the narrative of this Gator team, Jim McElwain and Jeremy Foley was afraid to play this game. Get that out of your head.
Led by the circus ring leader himself, Clay Travis of Fox Sports, failed attorney / spin master / Skip Bayless hot take wannabe. It's embarrassing the amount of trouble that this man has caused for this whole situation over the last couple of days. He's been the one that's been pumping the scared narrative for Florida. Live Periscope today. I really think he has no job whatsoever. I think he just does Facebook streams. His wife must make a lot of money because he seems like he's always bragging about everybody being poor and him being rich. He's always beach house shopping, kicking his feet up in the sand. I don't know what he does. I know that he was a lawyer in the Virgin Islands, and he's failed at that, and he's back here in the States. I've seen him on Fox Sports a few times, but he's not a regular. So I don't know exactly what his income is based upon, maybe Periscope views and Facebook views.
I think he has his own show in the morning time now.
They outkick the coverage or whatever that is. I don't know. But anyway, he has been an embarrassment to the Tennessee fan base, if you can say that there is one, because there's so many of them. He's been the focal point of the Tennessee fan base, the embarrassment that they've been. They spent so much time focusing on the University of Florida that they forgot they had to play a game against Texas A&M and should have got blown out. It's just embarrassing to see the scared narrative, like I said. Do I think that there was an agenda on both sides? Absolutely. Do I think that if Florida had a chance to squeak by this game without playing it and get to the SEC championship game at 6-1? Of course I do. Who wouldn't want to say, oh yeah, let's go risk playing another game, and risk a loss? Of course. But does it mean that the team's scared? No, it just means that they would do anything that any other team in this country would do if they had a chance to do it. If you could win your conference or your division at 6-1 instead of 7-1, of course you would win it at 6-1. But like I said, the scared narrative, like you said, is absolutely disgusting. It's filthy. And the LSU fan base should be completely ashamed of themselves. Not only have they bought into the scared narrative, they bought into the fact that their athletic director, they wanted to carry out in with shovels and pitchforks and carry him out of the athletic director's office after the Les Miles fiasco last year, and they hated his guts, are now stepping behind his back and have his back, thinking that he's the end-all, be-all, and that the 1,000% truth is coming out of his mouth? Is this the same athletic director that's been trying to get the Florida game out of the schedule of LSU for the last 4 years? The same one that's been scared, admittingly so, to play Florida because he said it's too hard to play a cross rival like Florida every year when you have to play Alabama every year. So, complained about that. Joe Oliva has found a way to complain about Florida as a cross-division rival. So if the scarcity, it's him. So I just want to say one thing to the LSU fans. You have lost a lot of respect from me over these last couple of days. The state of Florida has gone through a tragedy that the Baton Rouge natives are familiar with. And we had your back during Katrina, during the Baton Rouge floods that we've had recently, and right now, you turn your back on the state of Florida and act as if you're unfamiliar with anything that we've been going through these last couple of days. It's an embarrassment. And guys that I had respect for, like Booger McFarland, have been leading the charge. And you know what? There's a lady that is the administrative coordinator for the Louisiana State University football program named Louise Stuckey. Louise Stuckey. I retweeted her, what she said to Booger McFarland, and I screenshot it and put it out. I made her delete and deactivate her Twitter account because of it. She should be ashamed of herself, and she's lucky that I didn't send that screenshot and email it to the football offices at LSU. She made a comment about, I woke up this morning, has Florida forfeited this football game yet? Embarrassment coming from the football offices. She represents the football administration. So is that the way the coaches feel at LSU? I mean, one would believe so if she represents their offices and she's the administrative coordinator for the football offices. So it's just an embarrassment the way LSU has handled this whole situation. And I think LSU, I think Joe Oliva, to be honest, his main thing about this is money. LSU's broke. It's well known that they almost didn't field the football program this year because of the lack of funding that their school has. So losing $5 to $6 million for a home game on November 19th, I get it. But the fact that you're completely going out and making the University of Florida the villain in all this is an embarrassment. Just say and be honest and say that you don't want to lose the money of losing a home game. That's fine. And you know what? I tweeted earlier today that I really wouldn't mind that if LSU wants to play a home game on November 19th against us, that's fine. But we get back-to-back home games next year and the year after. That's only fair, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think that will happen. So
I don't think this game's going to happen, to be honest. I really don't. And the reason I don't is because I think that both programs are so dug in and stuck in this current situation. I don't think it's going to happen. And I think that you're going to people calling the SEC East division winners Florida. If we do end up taking the East, they're going to say it's tainted. They're going to say that it's, Tennessee fans, number one, are going to say it's tainted. But here's what I have to say to Tennessee fans. Beat Alabama on Saturday. If you beat Alabama on Saturday, you deserve it. You deserve it. You can't win all your games. If you can't win the games you're supposed to win, don't complain about another team not playing a game.
Yeah, I can see that narrative, but I mean, I can see it the other way. These teams, I guess, should have to face the same amount of teams, and I get the argument, and I'm still torn. I don't necessarily think I know if I agree. If a team that plays 7 conference games can get in the team that plays 8. It is a tricky, hairy situation. Not everything is black and white. But the SEC bylaws have made it that way, where it goes by a winning percentage. If you play 7 and the other teams play 8 conference games, so we'll recap. This is what happened last week. Florida had to postpone the game, and what we were heard that LSU offered everything under the sun to play the game in Baton Rouge. But the only way for that decision to be made, and for that to actually happen, that decision would have had to be made Monday, Tuesday at the latest.
Yes.
At the latest would have been Tuesday.
Yep.
There was still a good possibility this game could have been played in Gainesville on Saturday by Tuesday.
Yep.
So no, you can't blame Jeremy Foley for doing what he's supposed to do, looking out for his program, looking out for the University of Florida, and getting what was going to be the biggest recruiting weekend of the year for Florida. This was by far the best game on the schedule for Florida in a very, very weak home game schedule. And, so you cannot blame Jeremy Foley for digging in and say, we're going to have this game in Gainesville. So, yeah, of course, the storm takes a turn for the, worst and starts heading west. And you know what? If people want to throw eggs at Jeremy Foley saying he should have agreed to play in Baton Rouge Monday or Tuesday, okay, that's your prerogative. I disagree with you, but it's your prerogative. You can sit there and say, in order for that game to be played, that was probably the only 100% way that game was going to get played. I understand it. But Jeremy Foley is doing what he gets paid to do, and that's look out for the University of Florida, and that's what he did. So, we move forward. The game gets postponed. And then the narrative, Georgia and South Carolina's playing. Well, first of all, go back to Saturday. The weather is perfect on Saturday, so everybody starts throwing shade. Oh, what about this game? But you know what? The game could have been played Saturday. Well, you know what? First responders, emergency personnel were told the reason this game, once they made the decision to postpone the game on Saturday to not be played, the main reason was there was going to be no emergency responders, no first responders, no emergency personnel to work this game. So Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, emergency personnel were told they were not going to work a football game, and they were only going to help surrounding counties recover from Hurricane Matthew. So, folks, and the SEC stepped in and agreed. You're not playing the game on Sunday under these conditions.
Yep. That's the key. The SEC admitted that was from them.
Yes, that came from the SEC. It wasn't Florida's choice, people. So, yeah, and, yes. Could the game have been played Saturday? Yes. Under normal circumstances, yes. It was beautiful, but it was the days leading up to and the damage that the first responders in Gainesville had to go take care of. They were told they were not working a football game. And folks, personally, I saw it. I saw people had to leave in St. Augustine. I saw people that left Gainesville that morning. They were in hotel rooms, and not all of them still got to come home. Some of them were still there. So, there's different ways to look at it. And then, the whole, like I said, the narrative, they couldn't play Sunday, they couldn't play Monday, no first responders. Is there something the SEC can do from here on out to, can they bring their own emergency personnel, own security for reasons like that? But it's not that easy. It takes a lot.
It's ignorance, David. It's ignorance. I like I said, I live 5.3 miles from the beach. The prognosis and the estimations of this hurricane were devastating. I mean, they were. come Wednesday and Thursday, I was literally minutes away from evacuating. Half of my neighborhood was gone. Half of my neighborhood left. They shuttered up their house, boarded up their house, and they left. I was one of the few that stayed. We were barely getting reports, actually, that it could have been a Category 5 when it was going to hit Florida. So these are just the meteorologists that the schools are listening to, that the SEC offices are listening to. So, the ignorance of it all. UCF canceled their game. They wanted to make comments about UCF is a closer game than Miami and Florida State was to Gainesville. Orlando is an hour and a half from Gainesville. Miami is 5.5, 6 hours from Gainesville. So, you just can't understand it unless you are here and you actually dealt with the fear and the preparation that it was going into preparing for this hurricane that they were calling like a historic event. They were calling this hurricane historic, a historic devastation. There were reports that this hurricane was going to make landfall right over my house, basically. And they were saying that if this hurricane had made landfall, it would have changed lives forever. And that's the event that they were planning for. You can't say Friday, oh yeah, well,
for the worst.
Exactly. You can't say, oh, Friday, the weather looks great tomorrow. Let's, get the game back on. Let's go, fellas. And also, it takes weeks to plan for a road trip, okay? Weeks to plan for a road trip. South Carolina, they use the excuse South Carolina travel to Baton Rouge. First of all, South Carolina, is that Florida? Are you saying South Carolina is the program that Florida is? South Carolina was out of a race by then. They had no intentions whatsoever of winning any sort of race. So losing a home game for South Carolina was nothing. That wasn't a big recruiting weekend, like you said. They had nothing to play for. Basically they just got on a plane and played. And by the way, they got their butts whooped in that game, if I, recall correctly.
And that decision was made on a Monday.
So, exactly. It was made earlier in the week. Florida had to wait until Wednesday, night to make the decision, and it wasn't their decision. It was the SEC's office's decision. So they waited until the 11th hour based on the SEC. And it's just very sad to see that this has taken over all the topics over the weekend instead of the support rolling in for the families that lost everything this weekend. There were people that lost their homes, lost their businesses, lost relatives. There's been deaths, and it's just an embarrassment that football has taken over, and who the blame game has taken over the narrative. What should be is that let's pray for the victims, let's send relief, let's help out those in need, instead of no, Florida's scared. Florida didn't want to play. Florida didn't want to travel to Baton Rouge. LSU didn't want to travel to Gainesville. LSU doesn't want to lose a home game. Can we really stick to what's important in this world and just realize that the people that are hurting and suffering, lost property and possessions, are the real victims here, and not the fans that wanted to see football?
Right. And I think one thing that really got me today, and of course, Jim McElwain had his press conference, and you could tell he was pretty ticked off in the way this was represented. That Florida was afraid to play this game, and he mentioned the stats. I think 25, 29 deaths, something like that. Over 2 million people without power. Those kind of stats there. But the one thing Florida put out a story today, and there was I'm sorry, I've been busy doing hurricane stuff today too, but I briefly read the article, and there was a player on his team, on this Florida team, that went up to Jim McElwain after practice on Wednesday that said he was afraid for his family, where they were at. They were in the path of the storm, and he was afraid of his family. So you could tell right then that it was a human emotion. It connected with the realism that was going on with this storm coming.
52 players on the roster had family in the path of this hurricane. 52.
So Joey, here's the thing, people, and I agree with that. I take that side too. But then, people fight back that argument with, well, FSU and Miami also have family that was in the path of the storm, just as many as Florida, and Florida State and Miami also have family. So why did they play a game? And I'm like, these situations are different. Just because Florida did not play a game, does that mean it was wrong? just because they're in the minority, does that make it wrong? I don't think so. I mean, it's you can look at it two different ways. Some people are putting a football game first and foremost, saying the game should have been played, and some people are back in Florida, saying it is a hurricane. You cannot blame them for looking out for their feelings and family first. So there's so many ways this has been stretched that. Enjoy. What's your thoughts on FSU Miami also being played, and we saw up north, and if you saw the game North Carolina State and Notre Dame, that game was a slop fest that probably never should have been played in those conditions.
No, that game should have been canceled. In the Florida State Miami game, first of all, Miami didn't even get hit by the hurricane. Okay, they got hit by some breezy winds in an outer band or two. Miami was never in the path, never, not once. So Miami wasn't even under any sort of warning or watch or anything like that. So that was never a threat. But I guarantee you, though, if hurricane was a day later, Miami and Florida State probably would have gotten canceled. Don't forget, the hurricane hit Florida on late Thursday night into Friday morning, and I guarantee you, if it was late Friday night into Saturday morning, that game never would have been played. It wouldn't have. I don't believe so. So the timing was everything. That was a night game. I think, to be honest, if Florida had a night game on Saturday scheduled, that game might have been played. It might have been played. I think the timing of it, how early it was on Saturday morning and kind of the unknown, I think that in the TV contracts that was going on, I think that definitely affected it. I think if it was a night game scheduled already, I think there would have been a higher chance that it would have been played, because I think LSU actually could have flew in Saturday morning for a night game if they needed to.
That goes back to the argument that there were still no first responders and EMS and all that. Still, it doesn't matter what time actually the game would have been Saturday.
Okay.
Because that.
But as far as the Florida State and Miami game, that game was down in Miami. Miami was never in the track, so first responders never were affected in that. The hurricane got as far north as Palm Beach, I think, or as far south as Palm Beach, excuse me. Which is an hour and a half north of Miami. So it never even got close, really. So that's a completely different situation. The hurricane was actually expected to come on shore, as I said, and go up Central Florida, past Gainesville, and affect that area.
Yep. All right. So we've said our share. We of course we look at it with a little bit of orange and blue glasses. We're gonna take our arrogance, if you want to call it that. We are Florida.
But even Barrett Salee,
yeah,
is he has no horse in the race, and he's siding with us, with our side.
Yep. So yeah, there's the national narrative. It is split, and a good bit. A lot of the national narrative, even Dennis Dodd on TBS Sports also, took the Florida side about this, and saying the hurricane comes first and foremost, and the safety first and foremost. And I don't necessarily think it's sucking up to the SEC if you write that. It's you can still slam the SEC with this, and I think we're going to talk about that. You can still slam the SEC about what's going to turn out, and that's going to be our next topic, is what can happen, what needs to happen. But the narrative is split, and I'll agree with you. To Clay, I even quit following Clay Travis after this. I have no desire to listen to what this guy. Oh yeah, I did. I mean, a lot of it was betting stuff, Las Vegas stuff. He does a lot of that stuff. But after this, I
blood bank guarantee. You would have been drained like a vampire. Would have bit you, man.
But I have no desire, no respect for that guy. If I'll call him that, I guess, and I'll keep this PG right now.
Quick question before we close on this topic.
Yep.
Do you think that the game gets played?
Well, that's actually where I was going to go with this. So there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, you let it out with that.
Sorry. Segue.
No.
Teaser.
Good teaser. So what can happen? First and foremost, of course, Sunday was thrown out. Monday was thrown out. That wasn't happening. Then the idea come, Florida has a bye week before the Georgia game. Well, let's find some way to move the Florida-Georgia game to October 22nd, and then Florida and LSU can play October 29th. Sorry, no way, nada. That's not happening. Florida Georgia games is a much, much bigger deal for Gator fans. And you know what? Why throw another SEC team into this and mess up their season, their schedule as well? You'd mess up Georgia if you do that. So that's completely off the table. Everbank Field cannot get turned around in time for the Jaguar schedule, the Gator schedule, the Florida Georgia schedule, and have that. Sorry, that's off the table. Not going to happen at all. So we can definitely forget about that one. Then, of course, the magical November. Well, actually, I'll go back to those days. Another scenario that had been thrown out is Florida gets rid of their bye week, since they just kind of basically had one against LSU. Florida plays Presbyterian October 22nd, but still plays Georgia the 29th, October 29th. And LSU loses their bye week and plays their South Alabama game October 29th, which leads us to what everybody is saying, November 19th. So either somehow play those games on the dates I just mentioned. Florida plays Presbyterian October 22nd. LSU plays South Alabama October 29th. Or just buy those teams out somehow, some way, whether the SEC gets involved, whether the teams take care of it. I would imagine the SEC would put, to save a PR hit, take care of that part of it themselves and play the game November 19th, which leads us to Joe Leva saying they will play a home game November 19th. Notice he didn't say we're going to play South Alabama November 19th. We're going to play a home game November 19th. So that means basically he's saying, Florida, if you want to play this game, you're going to play it on our terms and you're going to play it in Baton Rouge. Absolutely no way that's going to happen either. So, Joey, let me get your take on that. From definitely to Florida, Georgia, that's not happening. Maybe the bye week scenario where the teams play during their bye week and the magical November 19th date.
I heard also the SEC championship getting pushed back a week, which isn't going to happen either. I mean, that's not going to happen because that messes up the college football playoff selection. They do their selection that Sunday, and that wouldn't happen. So they're not going to do that either. I think the most likely scenario is going to be that November 19th date. I think you possibly could see Florida fly to Baton Rouge on the 19th. I know you say that you don't think that's going to happen, but I think if LSU agrees to come to Florida the next 2 years and do like a back-to-back home game and then a back-to-back home game, I think that probably could happen. I think that could be kind of a, I think personally, I think Greg Sankey needs to get involved and mandate something.
I
don't think he really has the power. Yeah, I was about to say, I don't even know if he has the power to do that, to be honest. I saw in the bylaws, it actually says that it has to be agreed upon. The SEC offices, both schools have to agree on it. But I really think that the integrity of the SEC East is at stake if Florida LSU doesn't play. I really do. Because, Florida's games left, I think the toughest game left on their schedule is Arkansas. And Arkansas the other night got exposed. They can't stop a nosebleed defensively. They can't. So, Florida's offense could be very successful against Arkansas. So, to be honest, I really don't see a scenario where this game happens unless Florida, I think, agrees to go to Baton Rouge on the 19th of November and does a back-to-back home game where they get the next two home games. I don't think the Presbyterian game would be played on the 22nd. I think it would just be bought out, and I think it would just be like it was a couple years ago when Florida's game got canceled against Idaho, a lightning strike. Just play one less game, which really wouldn't matter. You can count that as a W anyway, so Presbyterian, probably the worst school that Florida's played in years, even FCS, whatever.
Yeah.
Presbyterian's really, really bad. Florida could show up with their practice squad and their scout team and probably win. But I just think that's probably the most realistic scenario. Or the game doesn't get played because, like you said, you can't move the Florida-Georgia game. That game's been set in stone for a year. CBS has the rights to that game. There's events planned the week leading up to the Florida-Georgia game. You have the Florida-Georgia Hall of Fame dinner the Friday night before where the new inductees get inducted. The old past inductees go and they meet and greet and have a dinner. And I think there's a golf tournament on Friday during the day. They do all sorts of things, other things. There's a parade. They do all sorts of things that encompasses the economy of the city of Jacksonville. You know this, that they can't lose, and they have planned that involve more than football. So that game is non-negotiable. So I really see November 19th being the only scenario that comes into play. And I think if Jeremy Foley digs his heels in and doesn't want to go to LSU, and obviously Joe Oliva already has his heels dug in and doesn't want to go to Florida, I think that this game, there's a chance that this game won't happen. I mean, it just won't happen. And you're going to see Florida possibly win the East at 6-1, because I believe Tennessee is going to get absolutely blown out this weekend. I think that you're going to see a scenario where Florida goes to the SEC championship game playing one less game than Tennessee. And is that wrong? Absolutely, it's wrong. I'd be pissed if I was a Tennessee fan too. But like I said, to push the narrative that Florida's scared or trying to get out of losing a game is absolutely absurd. It's absurd. It's disgusting. It's filthy. It's untrue. It's shaming a group of collegiate athletes, talented 5-star, 4-star, and 3-star collegiate athletes. So I think that this game needs to be played. I want to see it played. I really do. I think for the integrity of the East, it has to be played, because you can't come back and say that Florida's East crown was tainted, because that's exactly what's going to happen if Florida goes to Atlanta with 6-1 record. They will say that it's tainted. And can you imagine if Florida wins the game in Atlanta? The committee is going to have a decision to make. I mean, Florida with one loss, with one less game on their schedule, a less conference game, does the committee punish Florida for that and leave Florida out with an 11-1 record? I think they do. And that's going to hurt Florida, and that's something that we have to think of as well.
That's to your point. That's kind of could be what forces Jeremy Foley's hand in, like you maybe say, in making that trip to Baton Rouge November 19th. If of course that decision will have to be made very soon for that to happen. You can't just wait till the week before.
Could you see a neutral site game on the 19th? Maybe like Birmingham or Mobile, or
not with the way Oliva's talking, not with the way him saying he's not gonna. I mean, I could before maybe today, but with his comments, not really.
I wonder if Florida would give LSU the money that they would lose for the home game. Do you know what I'm saying? If money is an issue, which we truly believe that it is,
or the SEC.
Yeah, or another scenario is they're saying is Texas A&M LSU could get pushed back to Saturday, so that way LSU wouldn't have to go on the road and play a game 5 days later.
Yeah, and and I think a lot of people kind of forgot Florida's scenario in this as well. Going back, if Florida had chosen to go to Baton Rouge, to play this game this past weekend, that would have been 3 straight away games for Florida as well. A lot of people kind of just glossed over that. They didn't really care about Florida's point of view from that, but Florida went to Tennessee, went to Vanderbilt, and then would have ended up going to Baton Rouge on a short notice. So, if people want to feel sorry for LSU having to play 3 away games on a conference, most of that to do with they were playing 3 conference away games in 12 days, if that was the case. But, people just wanted to gloss over Florida's part of it and didn't, just because Florida is Florida.
Absolutely. And the scared narrative also goes out the window when you look at LSU's roster. Leonard Fournette was not going to play. LSU was going to be without 2 starting offensive linemen in that game. Florida, Florida is healthier as they're going to get with this bye. LSU was at their least healthiest of all season. So I think that
LSU fans though, Luke Del Rio was hurt. Oh, he didn't want to play. Caleb Brantley was hurt. Oh, he didn't want to play.
Luke Del Rio would have started on Saturday. Luke Del Rio would have been the starting quarterback on Saturday. If you honestly believe McElwain's spin saying that he didn't know who was going to start, come on. Luke Del Rio was ready to start the week before. He just wanted to keep him out against Vanderbilt. So that narrative just goes out the window that Florida was scared. LSU this is the worst team that I've seen LSU have in probably 5 years. I mean, maybe even longer actually. This team was reeling. I mean, they have a new coach. I mean, it's sad to see how Florida, is scared of a team that actually, frankly, is just garbage. I mean, LSU's garbage. Congratulations, you put up 600 yards of offense against Missouri. Florida might put up 600 yards of offense against Missouri this weekend. Missouri's defense is terrible. They're terrible, So, it's sad. It's sad to see that the pushers like Clay Travis and Matt Moscana of the Baton Rouge paper and guys like him that have pushed this narrative about Florida being scared. It's just it's disgusting. And like I said, the only scenario I see is Florida going to LSU on the 19th and doing a back-to-back home and home, where it's home and home for Florida the next 2 years.
And then, to kind of wrap this up, yeah, Joey, I mean, we wanted to see this game played. You and I both had plans. We were going to the game. It was something we want to see. And Florida LSU is, one of those recent SEC rivalries that, is an exciting game. So I'm like you. I hope the game gets played. If it's in November 19th in Baton Rouge, I probably definitely won't be making that trip. So, that's –
Well, real quick, I actually wouldn't mind if Florida – got the next 2 home games against LSU. Florida's road schedule next year is brutal. They lost a home game going to Dallas next year.
Yep.
So I wouldn't mind getting that game back next year.
Yeah, I mean, but it does think, this year for the home schedule where now it probably looks like who's your best home game? South Carolina, Kentucky, so it's scary.
South
narrative.
Carolina probably.
Yeah, just because of the Muschamp factor.
Because of the Muschamp thing. I'll be there. I'll be there just for the Muschamp factor.
Me too. That's the game. I'm planning on going to that one too. I guess you could put Missouri in there coming up this weekend. Yeah, but that's your.
Missouri's not good anymore. So.
No, I'm just saying. That's something. Like Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina.
It's sad.
That's the narrative we would be looking at there for the Florida.
Next year, your home games would be LSU, Florida State.
Tennessee.
And Tennessee, yep, marquee games next year.
A&M.
So I mean A&M, yep, A&M at home next year. Florida home schedule would be ripe next year.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something to look at. Plenty of games to host recruits next year. But Florida does lose out on their big official weekend. It probably looks like they'll try and make that up a little bit this weekend, but more than likely, to kind of get all their ducks in a row, make South Carolina weekend.
So quick prediction on the fly. Does this game happen? Yes or no?
I'm going to lean yes still. Maybe it is. Oh, another scenario. Quick question. If Florida and LSU, neither team, are in the SEC championship game, do you think this game is still played that day?
If Florida suffers another conference loss, is that what you're saying?
Let me say, if Florida or LSU, neither one make the SEC championship game. If both teams aren't in the SEC championship game, can you see this game being played SEC championship day?
Well, obviously, this would be decided ahead of time. Are you speaking like Florida loses to Georgia in 2 weeks and LSU drops another conference game, so basically they're out of it with 2 losses?
Yeah, hypothetically, Florida loses to Georgia or Arkansas, and LSU is not making a title game either.
No. I think the only way this game gets played is for integrity purposes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do. I think if Florida gets out of October unbeaten, I think it's going to be played because I think if you go to Fayetteville with only 1 loss and Tennessee gets beat by Alabama this weekend, which we assume they will.
And having to happen, I also think the decision has to be made pretty soon, going to that. So this is Gators Breakdown, part of the SEC Breakdown Network. That's Joey V. I'm David Waters. You can find us on Twitter. You can find Joey_Sports Talk, and myself at GatorDave_SEC. So, Joey, it is Missouri week. Both teams, unexpectedly, had a week off. Oh,
we have a game on Saturday? There's a game?
There is a game. There is a game. Missouri's last game, we talked about 42-7 loss to LSU. Missouri has I think SEC's leading passing attack, but that day, Drew Lock was only 17 of 37, 167 yards.
Because he saw a real secondary.
Yes, there you go. Speaking of that, he had no touchdowns and 1 interception in that. Only averaged 4.5 yards per throw. Speaking of that, you said he finally saw a real secondary. Well, he's going to see pretty similar coming into the swamp for this. I think the Gators will be, hyped up after an unexpected bye week. Hopefully, we keep saying they'll be hyped up, ready to play, but a lot of questions after the Vanderbilt game, the last 6 quarters total. The second half of the Tennessee game, the Vanderbilt game, and now this whole LSU fiasco. You have to think the Gators will come out ready to play.
Yeah, I if this doesn't get the players angry and ready to go, I don't know what will. They've been shamed. They've been beat down. They've been talked about, made fun of the last 5 days. I think Florida has to make a statement in this game. I think Jim McElwain has to make a statement in this game. I think he has to go out there and show that he's not scared to play against anybody. And I think that you have to go out with the mindset that you need to run up the score on Missouri. I do. I think this is the game where you have to go out with the mindset and beat them like you did Kentucky. Because if you barely squeak by Missouri at home on homecoming, people will continue the scared narrative. They will. They're going to, and people are going to be clamoring even more for Florida to play LSU because they're going to think that LSU would have beat Florida. They were a road favorite. LSU was favored by 2.5 points. The line was going up. Actually, it probably would have been 3.5 by game time. So I think that this is a game that Florida has to go out and win decisively by 3 or 4 touchdowns, to be honest. And I think Missouri's the team to do it against. Their defense is pathetic. Their offense is pathetic as well. Their passing game's pretty good, but their run game is absolutely zero. They have no running back whatsoever. They can throw the ball a lot, but when Florida can literally drop 6-7 guys in coverage and be okay with it, they're not going to pass much. Honestly, I think the front four can pretty much contain Missouri's run. It's so bad. So you're going to see a healthy Caleb Brantley, hopefully. You're going to see a lot healthier, maybe Brian Cox, a healthy Brian Cox. I guess Joey Ivy will be the only one that'll be out. Jordan Sherritt will be out as well. But as far as everybody else, everybody should be good to go on defense. And I think Florida needs to be licking their chops at the fact that Missouri's probably going to throw it 35, 40 times this game. They're going to have to win. And I think Tabor and Quincy are going to be licking their chops in this game. And I think this is a game where they need to have a couple interceptions. I do. I think Florida's offense needs to come out and be explosive. Missouri's defense is absolutely atrocious. We expected their defense under Barry Odom to be actually pretty good this year, and they've been nothing but. I know they did lose a couple guys that were dismissed from the team that were supposed to be pretty good, their defensive line, but their defense stinks. And I think Florida needs to come out and hang 40 or 50 on Missouri. I think this is a weekend where Jim McElwain has to literally pull his middle finger out of his pocket and stick it in the camera's face and tell everybody in the country, I'm not scared of anybody.
Yep. Drew Lock has, coming in, throwing for 1,675 yards, but get this, 450 against Eastern Michigan, 402 against Delaware State. So, when they face competition, it was a lot of the first game of the season was against West Virginia, so a lot of the yards there were in comeback mode. They were down pretty big in that game where they had to come back and fight back there. And then, like I said, Eastern Michigan, Delaware State amped up some stats there. And like we said, against LSU, he really, really struggled there. Like you mentioned, finally facing, a defense. I mean, I'll admit I was kind of high on Missouri going into that LSU game. I kind of even picked that as an upset going through what LSU had went through with the firing of Les Miles and stuff. But I think Missouri probably got shown some true colors in that game, going against a amped up LSU team with their new head coach. So. There's a lot to go, and they don't have much of a run game like you spoke of. They have 790 yards on the season, or average about 4 yards a carry. But receiver Jamal Moore is the one to watch out for. It's going to be a good matchup there. 6 touchdowns already this year, 450 yards receiving on 27 receptions. Going to be a good little matchup, but wherever he lines up, Wilson or Tabor can definitely handle their own against him. But I want to see how this Florida defense responds to some questions about toughness. The last couple of weeks, second half against Tennessee, and you can look at some injuries there against Vanderbilt, but still some toughness where they left some gaping holes for Ralph Webb. But we've seen what Ralph Webb can do. Ralph Webb's one of the SEC's best backs.
Ralph Webb hates Florida. He hates Florida.
Yeah, exactly.
I said weeks ago he always gets up for Florida. He hates the fact Will Muschamp never offered him a scholarship, and he holds that against Florida every single time.
Yep, and but he holds his own there, but we've seen he's one of the best backs just on a worse team, in there. So it's you have to think this Gator team. I've said it before. You should come out head on fire, but we never know. I mean, this even we'll go back to last week where we were talking McElwain mentioning that this team's got to get tougher, and it starts with him. He knows that. So maybe, can they get some stuff together? Granted, Florida did have last week off, by not playing a game. They were still preparing for LSU that week. It's not like they got to prepare for Missouri for 2 weeks. Like Missouri got to prepare for Florida for 2 weeks. So just because Florida didn't play last week does not mean they were focused on Missouri a good week. You probably didn't get much, Missouri stuff in until probably, they probably knew sometime late Wednesday, Thursday morning that LSU wasn't going to be happening. They could shift their focus to Missouri. So as far as the defensive line, I really think it's going to come out and make a statement. Yes, this Missouri passing attack is quick. There's not going to be a lot of chances for sacks here, but you still got to get enough pressure to on Locke, because we saw it last year. I think he made his first career start against Florida last year. Was Locke's first start for Missouri. And Florida. That Tabor interception, I think Florida won the game 21-7, I believe. Will Greer's last game. I just kind of popped in my head there. So, yeah, I just thought about that. So, it was the Will Greer.
Thanks for breaking my heart.
Oh, I know. But, Joey, what we got to bring up, Missouri's last trip to the Swamp, which, was the ugliest game.
I was there. I was there for homecoming in 2014.
Yeah. We didn't know each other then, but
and I was one of the ones booing Muschamp off the field in the third quarter. I was the one saying "Fire Muschamp," chanting "Fire Muschamp." That was embarrassing. Missouri, what did they have? 63 passing yards that game. I think 63 passing yards that game, and they won by 3 touchdowns.
It was 42-13. 119 total yards on just 49 plays. So they had 2.4 yards per play. But we know what happened there.
2 special teams touchdowns.
Yep, opening kickoff was
2 kick returns. Yep, opening kickoff and another kick return for a touchdown as well. Exactly. Jeff Driscoll got booed off the field. He got benched. Treon Harris came in and threw a touchdown pass. Jeff Driscoll, they panned the camera to him, and he was just shaking his head, and he did the face palm. So,
going back to LSU, Tevin Westbrook dropped a wide open touchdown, and he makes this miraculous catch from Treon Harris. And you're right, the camera pans, and
and that was the end of the Jeff Driscoll era at Florida.
Yep. So we mentioned there. Tigers just had 7 first downs 2 years ago when that game happened. But so, like I said, Saturday's matchup, it puts the SEC's top pass rushing team, that's Florida, against Mizzou's pass blocking team. So, like I mentioned, there won't be a lot of chances for sacks. Missouri's only given up 3 sacks all year. But mainly it's not because their offensive line is that good. It's just that style of offense does not really lend itself to sacks. A lot of screens, a lot of 3-step drops, get rid of the ball. Maybe you can see your defensive linemen put their hands up, bat the ball down. But this is going to be, like you mentioned, there's going to be a good chance for Tabor Wilson, play some press coverage, and you're going to have plenty of chances to get your hands on the ball here. And one last thing, Florida averages, about almost 4 sacks a game. So that's second in the SEC, 7th nationally. But it also puts the SEC's top passing offense in Mizzou against, the SEC's top pass defense. So this is going to be like we saw with Missouri versus LSU, that good secondary, and now we're fixing to come to the Swamp and face this good secondary.
Yep. Absolutely. I completely expect the Missouri offense to get shut down. I think when Florida can focus on one offensive game plan, I think that the defense just feasts on that. When there's a multi-dimensional offense, I think Florida struggles a little bit. But when you have a heavy run team or a heavy pass team and one or the other, I think Florida just eats that alive when they can focus all their energy onto one phase of the game. And they're going to be able to do that here. So what do you think about Florida's offense against this very bad Missouri defense?
Well, and Joey, you just read my mind tonight, man. Here we go. We get
Sorry. We've been doing this now for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So we just 4 weeks.
No, I was
We
actually
just
going to ask you a
started
question next. Here we go. But and lo and behold, should have mentioned this earlier. Of course, Luke Del Rio will be back for sure. It was mentioned in the presser to on Monday. So Luke Del Rio returns. You have to think that gets the leadership back on the field, gets the offense back in a groove. Do we? I mean, I know we talked about this last week. We're going to sound like a broken record. Does Jordan Scarlett get the majority of the carries? We should see it there. But I wouldn't mind seeing Del Rio. I'm kind of going against my grain of thought here. I wouldn't mind seeing him throw it all over the field just a little bit. Jacob Eason did a pretty good job as a freshman against this Missouri defense late in the game against Missouri. Not so much that final drive. He had the good touchdown passes, but his touchdown passes before that final drive against Missouri were terrible. But as a freshman on the road, he did pretty good against Missouri. So Luke Del Rio coming in, and there's been some holes on that Missouri. Danny Etling a couple weeks ago, against LSU on a balanced attack, kind of similar to what I think we'll see from Florida. Did need to they opened up that offense a little bit from LSU against Missouri's defense. So I want to see the same from Florida. Come out. Yes, you can be balanced. You can go lean a little bit more toward the run, but be aggressive. We've seen these deep passes on the first drive of the game. And a couple of them haven't worked, but a couple of them haven't worked. And back these defenders off the ball a little bit. Open up your run game from your aggressive passing game. That's what it's the old Steve Spurrier mantra. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing right now. But David Sharp should come back healthy. He was practicing late last Wednesday when a lot of questions were going around about these Florida injuries. So he was practicing. Luke Del Rio was practicing, splitting reps that time. But that's only really what we've got to see as they were preparing for LSU of who was practicing. So, get your and I'll go back to this. Use Antonio Callaway any way possible. Get Jordan Scarlett the ball. Get your two best playmakers the ball right now, and let Luke Del Rio go crazy a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Missouri's defense made Danny Etling look like Joe Montana last week. If you watched the game. Danny Etling all of a sudden turned into a Heisman Trophy candidate against Missouri's defense. So I expect Luke Del Rio to come out and shred it. I do. I expect Jim McElwain, like I said, this is a statement game for the coaching staff. I remember we talked about last week's show about how they needed to prove themselves against LSU because they frankly got outcoached against Vanderbilt and Tennessee. So this is a game for them to come out, like I said, and McElwain to stick his middle finger to everybody that's been saying that they're scared to face LSU. I think that Florida needs to put up 40 or 50 points against Missouri's defense. I think that this is the game where they have to do it. I think this is a game where they can do it. I think that this game should be a blowout. I want to see a blowout. I know I predicted a blowout against Vanderbilt, and stupid me because Vanderbilt 90% of the time plays Florida close no matter how good the Florida team is. Even in championship years, Vanderbilt seems to always play Florida close. I mean, it just is what it is. I don't know what it is about Vanderbilt. So foolish me for doing that. But I will come out and say that Florida is going to hang over 40 on Missouri this week. And I think a lot of it is going to be because of anger coming out on Florida. And I think Florida's been itching to play. I've seen a lot of their players tweet out on Friday and Saturday that they wish they were playing. On Saturday they were watching college football and a lot of them said, oh, it's killing me. I'm not playing right now, and I think you're going to see a lot of guys itching to play. They're going to be angry. They're going to come out fierce. The offensive line, I think, should have a feasting day against Missouri's defensive line. And I just think Missouri's secondary is absolutely atrocious. And I think Callaway is going to get behind a few people quite a bit on Saturday. And I think it's going to be a good day in the swamp. I think homecoming weekend, so it's going to be a great weekend for all the fans. I was a little off making predictions after that Vanderbilt prediction because I thought that, me, and I just can't make a prediction anymore. But I will say this. I think Florida comes out. I think Florida plays angry. They play mad. They play mean. They play physical. And they air the ball out a lot. Like you said, I think McElwain does want to throw the ball around a lot. And I think he has the availability. I mean, the playbook is open now with Luke Del Rio. It was not open with Austin Appleby. It wasn't. And you saw they held Austin Appleby back the Vanderbilt game. I mean, he had a very limited playbook in the Vanderbilt game. And I think a lot of that was they didn't trust him. They didn't trust him to not turn the ball over. Vanderbilt's defense, probably a little bit better than Tennessee's defense, actually. Tennessee has better players, but overall as a collective unit, I think Vanderbilt's defense is fantastic. And I think the Florida offensive coaches did not trust Appleby. They trust Luke Del Rio. They think he's going to take care of the ball. They trust him to make the throws. They let him kind of make the decisions at the line. They let him change plays. And I think Florida wins this game by a lot. I think Florida wins this game 41-21.
Granted, that blowout we were talking about 2 years ago, besides that, these Florida Missouri games have been pretty ugly. So, we'll see what happens there. Going back to just going to quick stats here. Danny Etling was 19 of 30 for 216 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but it was that LSU run game. 52 carries for 418 yards. So, maybe, I don't know, maybe McElwain sees that. Maybe he sees something to exploit there and, uses that running back rotation, hopefully led by Jordan Scarlett, getting the majority of the carries. But maybe we'll still see that rotation a bit just because, if you can see yourself getting, of course you can't tell the future, but if you can see your, a big-time success, I don't think you'll probably get 418 yards like LSU did. But if you can see some success there and you see something you can exploit, maybe we see the running game take over instead of the passing game. But with Luke Del Rio coming back, I wouldn't mind seeing them sling it around a little bit. I'll kind of go a little closer just because might be a little bit of rust with Del Rio, just a hair. But I'll say a pretty comfortable 30-10 win there for Florida. Hopefully our predictions are a little closer this time, and Florida's comfortable with a game here. But I think the defense will become ready to play. Of course, the question again is on offense, but with the return of Del Rio, I feel pretty confident this offense will get in a groove and get some things going.
Absolutely. I like the prediction. I gave Missouri 21 points because I think they're going to be so far behind in the fourth quarter. I think they'll throw maybe a junk touchdown or two junk touchdowns, in the fourth quarter. I think Florida will be up comfortably by the beginning of the fourth quarter, and they'll kind of just cruise. And Missouri might get a late touchdown or something.
Singing "We Are the Boys" with a big smile on the face.
I think it's going to happen this week. I think this is the weekend where they put it all together.
All right. With an unexpected bye week, the Gators got so a little bit of extra preparation from Missouri. Saying, maybe we can put all this LSU fiasco behind us. We'll hopefully find out something this week about that. Missouri travels to Florida, and Joey and I are both suspecting this Florida offense and this Florida defense to control the game. Joey, before I go, quick thing. Eddie Pinheiro, kind of been, this, Vanderbilt game was, pretty much the reason I guess you could look at, 2 field goals there and reasons Florida could feel comfortable winning that game. But so we're not expecting it this week, I guess, for, a late game heroic from Pinheiro. But have you been happy with what you've seen with him so far?
Oh, absolutely. He makes extra points. We haven't seen that in a while.
Yep.
It's come down to that, where an extra point is actually an automatic thing now for us. We're not used to that. We had to hold our breath every single time an extra point was kicked the last couple of years, and no fan base should have to go through that.
Yep, I agree there. And I guess surprisingly, the punt return unit has been the most disappointing, aspect of this Gator special teams, and not the field goal kicking. So it's kind of been polar opposites of where it was last year for this Florida special teams.
Yeah, the special teams needs to improve. The kick returns and the punt returns have been absolutely atrocious. Florida has weapons. Florida has weapons all over the place, and I just can't believe that they can't put somebody back there that is capable of, gaining a good amount of yards on a kick return or a punt return.
Yeah, kick return for some reason, for years now has just been. I don't feel confident in a kick return at all. So
since Andre DeBose.
I guess there you go. That's definitely the last time. So at no point, it's only been a season and a half under Jim McElwain. I thought Brandon Powell would be a good guy back there, but he just can't seem to get the job done there. So maybe he's just I
was just talking with somebody on Twitter about special teams the other day, saying 2012 special teams was the best I've ever seen at Florida, with DJ Durkin. Yeah, Andre DeBose. That every single time he touched the ball, it was a possible touchdown. Absolutely.
Yeah, Sturgis was money from about anywhere you wanted to kick that field goal from. All right, so there we go. Florida, Missouri, and we'll put this LSU stuff behind us, hopefully. So for Joey V, Joey_Sports Talk on Twitter, and I'm Dave Waters, GatorDave_SEC. This has been Gators Breakdown on SEC Breakdown.